right, looks like we've got half an hour. We are going to do a bit of a tips and tricks slash Q&A type video. We're going to try to kill two stones with one bird in half an hour. So let's try to do this. First of all, we have some commonly asked questions people have left on the channel that I've either wanted to make a video about or responded to them, but I'm not sure if they got the comment or not. So we're going to run through some of those. We're going to run through some questions that I've gotten via email. We're going to run through questions that people have asked me personally in my life. We're going to go through things that people have asked during interviews, just various things like that. We're going to try to cover as much as we can in half an hour. So, first of all, we will begin with what I think is the most important of these questions, because it covers something that is often asked but not addressed, I guess is one way you could think of it. So, the first question is just generally tips for invocation and evocation. Love it. I will not bore you with the typical use a different sigil, use a different mantra, use a different item to scry into. You've probably tried that if you're still having problems and you're asking this. So let's get into more pragmatic, practical approaches to that. So the first tip that I have for invocation and evocation is when you're doing an evocation, typically what we mean by that is we are bringing something out. Okay. When we're talking about an invocation, we are typically talking about bringing something in. There's also convocation. There's many forms of vocation. And you probably had convocations at your school where you had some sort of mascot or spirit jump around and make gestures while chanting some sort of school mantra. And you were all in putting that energy, bringing that archetype down into existence. That's an example of a convocation. So for evocation, my tip, this is sort of a double tip because it's going to work sort of the opposite with both. When I am performing an evocation, I will typically focus on the projective energy centers. So you could think you could think like I'm not going to go over the names because most of you probably don't know the names. So your projective chakras. So the masculine projective outward directed chakras. This also works on the middle pillar. So if you are a Kabbalist and you're wanting to address this matter, you could say that your Keter point is a projective point, while the Binah point would be receptive. Then the heart point in that formula might be projective. If this doesn't work for you, don't use it. With the chakras, typically, I guess I will run through them. So though the Muladhara chakra, the root chakra, is at the base and at the bottom, you can still consider it a projective. It is where the Kundalini force rises from. So if you're going to do an evocation, you could focus on either the Manipura chakra, which would be projective, or you can focus on the Anya or Anya chakra, which would also be projective. But what you can do is focus on all of these points. So your root chakra, Muladhara, the solar chakra, Manipura, and the third eye chakra, Anya. You can put your focus and awareness into those points. And that will put you in a projective state. This also works for astral projection, but we're not going to get into that right now. Focusing on your projective points as opposed to your receptive points. So the Svadhisthana, Anahata, Vishuddha. Actually, I forgot. So yeah, I guess I did. So I actually misnamed one. Vishuddha, not Anya. So you would focus on Muladhara, the root chakra, Manipura, the solar chakra, and Vishuddha, or Vishuddhi, the throat chakra. Anya is in fact receptive. And then if you can also use the crown chakra, so to speak, to aid and assist in this. The names, call them what you want if you want. The idea is to focus on the projective parts of your energy body. Now, if this isn't working for you, or if you're not sure what the fuck I'm talking about, what you can do is create a point of density within your center. So you're going to take all of your awareness and you're going to bring it in to the point where it is so condensed that it wants to fall or bounce or push out of you. And you're going to continually, from above and below, feed this pressure. This is an advanced technique. Yes, this can cause energy blockages. You should not be doing invocation or evocation unless you are comfortable with your own energy and how to control it, in my opinion. So, the converse of that, which is invocation, you're going to focus on the receptive parts of your body. So the Anahata chakra, the Svadhisthana, the Anya chakra. Or you could focus on the Yahweh Elohim. Excuse my French for those of you who are against God names. You could use the Binah point, and you could use the Yesod point. These are receptive. Yes, you can also use the heart one. This one is sort of one of the magics of the heart, is that it's both electric and magnetic. If this does not work for you, then you would do the converse of what we did in the invocation. Instead of condensing our energy, and I'm doing it here because so you can see it on camera, but it's actually more like down here at the diaphragm solar plexus. You can even condense it lower at the dantian. There are, of course, there are different energy centers used differently. All I'm trying to address is that some are more projective and some are more receptive. Whatever works for you. If you haven't tried this, you might try it. If the receptive projective energy centers isn't working for you, converse to the evocation where we compressed in the invocation, we're going to sort of go into our center and sort of push out. And it's not exactly what it sounds, because you're not going to stay at the center. You're going to sort of move into a shell of yourself. Physically, I guess I drew a little diagram here. Physically, this is essentially what I'm talking about. So you're going to focus more on your outerness for an invocation, in my experience, in my opinion. And for an evocation, you're really going to want to compress into the center, because you're wanting to create, maybe a volatility is not, definitely a density. And you are going to identify this density with whatever force you're trying to invoke. Or sorry, whatever force you're trying to evoke. Got it? Okay, moving on. The next question is, why do I wear all black? This is one that I've covered before. The color black helps me concentrate. I'm a space cadet, I'm an airhead. When I wear all black, it helps me concentrate, it helps me focus. Are there other benefits to wearing all black? Yes, but that is the main reason. Why do I wear the headband? I wear the headband because I like the headband, and it keeps me focused, and it keeps my hair in one spot, and it's not blowing all over the place. But interestingly enough, historically, headbands have symbolized resistance. Resistance to what? I'll leave that up to you to gossip and wonder about yourself. And another question. What's up with the squid? So, I guess I'll just go ahead and grab him. So, this has been on my chair for a long time now, and it was in many interviews. So this little guy right here, the squid, it's multifaceted for me. One, my dad used to read me, or a few times before he passed, read me 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and it absolutely terrified me as a 5-year-old. So there's a sense of terror there, but also I had this experience one time where I was submerging into the unconscious, and I was at the point of an experience. And the experience that I wound up with was a giant squid manifesting, and I could see it reaching for me and grappling for me, and I sort of snapped out of it and became conscious. And I realized that that was a perfect metaphor, symbol for the intellect trying to grasp at things, preventing you from getting to the deep. So that's another layer of the squid. It's sort of a shadow totem, I guess you could say. But it has a lot of meaning, good and I guess you could say bad, but not really bad. So yeah, that's the squid. Okay, moving on. Next question: is your beard real? No, the beard's fake. Okay, moving on. Yes, the beard is real. It's attached to my face. Oh, how old are you? Is your beard real, and how old are you? I'm older than I look. Okay. Now, this is the last question. I think that we've still got some time. How to tell the difference between love and fear? I mean, I guess what they might be getting at how, like, if you do something out of love, like, there is a sense of fear. So like if you feed your child out of love, it's out of fear that they won't starve. We can get into this a little bit. So in my experience, love tends to challenge and fear tends to preserve. This is not perfect by any means, but bear with me. If you have to make a decision and you're not sure if you are in a situation and you're not sure if you're acting out of fear or out of love, or if you're doing it, am I doing this because I'm afraid, or am I moving towards something? Ask yourself if you're challenging yourself, or if you're trying to preserve something, if you're trying to be safe. A lot of times that will give you your answer. Okay, moving on. What tradition do I draw most from? Okay. That is such a loaded question. Art? Music? Science? I think of myself as a sort of ceremonial scientist. So I would say art and science, but I think I know what you're asking. I would say somewhere between shamanism and sorcery. I sort of lean on alchemy. And by alchemy, I mean more in I don't want to say a traditional or a Taoist sense, but the idea of transmutation in general is sort of my whole practice. Everything to me is a translation and a transition. So a good friend of the channel and I were speaking, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago, Accidental Abramelin. There is a video where we spoke and had an interview that was an excellent interview, if you would like to check that out. But we were speaking about viewing our crafts through the lens of other crafts. And I started thinking about my shamanic background, and I made a community post about this, but I was viewing shamanism through the lens of alchemy and the 7 stages, and I was viewing sorcery through that lens as well. And what I sort of came up with was a realization that I by no means had a full training in shamanism or sorcery, but for my shamanistic approach was sort of like dissolution, conjunction, and fermentation, putrefaction. And by that I mean I would just dissolve, and then I would find things that were conjunct or relevant to either my purpose or mission. And then once I had them, I would put them to the test, but not in a calcinatory way, and like a fermentative and putrefactory sort of sense. If it's good, I can keep it around and it won't die, sort of thing. But sorcery, for me, I learned calcination, separation, and coagulation. And what that represents to me is the calcination is of sorcery that I learned was sort of taking something and really going at it. Is this durable? Is this gonna last? You know what I mean? And then from that, I would be able to discern, like, what is this practice made of? Okay, we're talking about the Western tradition. What is this made of? Or we're talking about Buddhism. What is this made of? And then I learned the doctrine of correspondences, which is very similar in my mind to coagulation, bringing things together that are similar. And by utilizing both of these, I was more easily able to sublimate. Now, again, shamanism will teach you more than those three things, and sorcery will teach you more than those three things, but due to my upbringing and culture and mindset and capabilities, I was only able to grasp certain aspects. And I just think it's interesting to look at our craft or our interests through the lens of other interests, because it can really shed light. It can bring a lot of awareness on the subject. Okay, next question. Why do I have Horparkrat in the background? This was, someone actually painted this for me. This was a gift of sorts. So I like it for that reason as well. Another reason, it's a perfectly wonderful symbol. There's nothing wrong that I found with it. Yes, it is tied to certain traditions, but that, it doesn't hurt to remind ourselves to meditate perhaps on more ancient symbols, or more innocent symbols, or more silent symbols. Okay, moving on to the next question. Have I read all those books? I have. I've read all of them except for, where's the other one? So I've read all of them except for this one is next. It's The Body and Its Symbolism, a Kabbalistic Approach. That's kind of a beast. I'm reading that one next, and I have not yet finished. I have not yet finished Agora 3. So the first 3 books of these, you got to take with a grain of salt. They are pretty fantastical and pretty interesting to read, but I wouldn't necessarily take them as like a definitive resource on the subject. But yes, I've read all of these. I've got another bookshelf over here. I've read all of those. And then I've got some books over here. The Zohar. This is only number 7. Someone bought me this. I mentioned an interest in the Zohar, and someone bought me what they thought was the Zohar. But it's just number 7. And yeah, some of these I've read more than once. Saveways, definitely. Esoteric Teachings, definitely. I've read almost all the Lon books more than once. Actually, it's funny that this is here. This relates to the next question. If you've got a $200 obsidian skull, why not get better recording equipment? Good question. Except this is a candle. This is a wax candle. So if you know where to get a what was this, like $7 or $8 If you know where to get a camera and better recording equipment for $7 or $8, let me know. But for now, I'll just stick with the wax candle that looks like an obsidian skull so much that someone thought that it was, apparently. Okay, how much more time do we have? We still have 10 minutes, but some of these questions are getting a little bit redundant. All right, let's see if we can think of something else. Are there any other questions? A lot of people have asked to see the whole room. That is something that I might do at one point, but I'm not sure if it's something I'm going to do today. Let us see, is there anything else? Oh, the screen, as someone has asked me about before, the screen that is sat behind me, they asked what it was for. That is to press incense cones, because I do make my own incense from time to time. And this was just made out of a door screen. And what do you call it? What do you call those things? Pallets? Like wooden pallets? But recently, what I have been wanting to use it for is paper pulping, because I go through so much paper. And I've been trying to figure out like how I can, one, go through less paper, but two, like, because they don't really recycle in our area, so I have to take all of my recyclable stuff over to my mom's, and I don't like to do that too much. So yeah, I'd like to start using that for paper pulping as well. I just thought of another thing that I can talk about, which is those of you that are having trouble generating energy, so to speak, cultivating chi. A little trick that I used to do when I was an up-and-coming so-and-so is I would take a little Q-tip, and if you get the paper Q-tips, you can actually break them in half like so, and you don't have to use as many. But what you're going to do is you're going to take just a little bit of that tiger balm, or maybe ginger or cinnamon oil or something, as long as it's, medical quality. And if it is an essential oil, make sure it's not one that you should dilute before you touch your skin with it. But anyway, little bit of tiger balm with a Q-tip, just a little bit, just under the navel or the lower dantian. Just put it there and just breathe that sensation. As you're focusing on that sensation, breathe in and raise your awareness or your proprioception up. If you're struggling to do this, and or you're ready to move on to the next stage, it's sort of weird, like moving into the next stage can sort of kickstart the last one. You can put a little bit on your third eye, just a little bit on the Anya chakra, whatever you want to call it, the third eye, the Ata point, a little bit from the lower dantian to the third eye, and you can breathe from one point to the next. And if you're having trouble with proprioception and moving the chi around your body and stretching and compressing it, this can be very, very, very beneficial. It's something that I used to do when I used to struggle with lower energy centers, because I would be up in my head and in my heart all the time, and just putting this first thing in the morning right after the shower under my navel would send my energy straight down. Another thing you can do if you have trouble grounding is rub just a little tiny bit of this on the top of your feet. So yep, I think those are some good tips. Those are some good questions answered. Maybe just one other quick question, one other quick tip. You can keep things simple. So like, yeah, alchemy has anywhere from like 3 to 40 stages, depending on who you ask, but you can keep it simple. And one thing that I like to do, I have just this little tiny experiment going where I can't really quite tip it over right now and show you, or it'll spill, but I just have a little incense thing here that I've got a little sake cup, and what I do is I calcinate, and this isn't even really the actual process, but it's a representation of the process. I've got sandalwood that I calcinated, and then when it turned to ash, then I pour water in there, and then I light the flame, and it just sort of evaporates it. Like I said, it's not a full alchemical process, but it reminds us that the process is occurring, and it can be a sort of kickstart to laboratory alchemy or physical objects being a spiritual meditation. Basically what happens is each time that happens, the ash is getting a little bit more and more pure, or at least it should be, and eventually, hopefully, I will end up with something that is different than just the sandalwood that I calcinated originally. Is it a full alchemical process? Hell no. Is it going to result in any sort of sulfur or salt or mercury? Probably not. Again, this is just a very, very simple experiment that I can do every day that keeps me sort of in the rhythm of the things that I want to be practicing. So anyway, that is it for this one. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the interest. I hope some of these tips help. I may make these into more specific videos if you're all interested, but other than that, I think that is enough for today. Have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week. Have a great rest of the month. We're getting close, but have a great rest of it. And feel free to leave any questions or comments below. And yeah, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.